Hello and welcome to North Country Matters. My name is Donna Seymour. I'm a member of the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters, one of the civic partners for our show. This is another in our series we're calling Conversations from the CoronaVerse. My guest today is Mary Ann Ashley, Supervisor of the town of Canton. Welcome back to North Country Matters, Mary Ann. We're glad you could return to us via Zoom to talk about how your local government is managing during the pandemic.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, my pleasure. You've been on the show several times and you're always a great guest. So you have actually a lot of local government experience. You've been a trustee of the Village of Canton. You were a one-term mayor, and now you're the supervisor of the town. On March 30th, in March, you declared a 30-day state of emergency in the town, which included adjusting town employees' work hours and office operations and froze most of the department spending. That state of emergency was renewed on April 8th for another 30 days, and New York pause is in effect at least until the middle of May. So, Mary Ann, how have the town offices and the services they provide to residents been impacted?
Well, as with any municipal government, we've all been impacted, and everybody has stepped up to the plate. Departments, we worked closely with them on what their needs were, what their thoughts were, a shared decision-making model, if you will, what is in their best interests. Number one. Number two is what is in the best interest of our citizens and how can we continue to serve during this global crisis. So everybody stepped up to the plate, and I'm proud of all of our town departments as well as our shared services departments with the Village of Canton. We're working closely with them as well. And we're all taking care of each other at the same time, making sure services are continued. It's been an adjustment, but the most important thing is that everybody's safe.
Yes, and also not only is that everybody is safe, but that we are all continuing to follow and role model those important public health guidelines that have been given during this crisis because as everybody in the town is a leader in the community, then you need to be role modeling for all of your residents what is the right thing to keep doing, don't you?
Absolutely. We all do. And because we're all in this together. And it's very important to follow the executive orders because that is state law. When the governor issues an executive order, that is law. So we need to follow that. And it's been an ongoing communication between the state departments, the county departments, and the local departments on what we should or shouldn't be doing. And we've done pretty well. And the most important thing is social distancing, wearing a mask, washing your hands, not be in groups, and stay at home unless it's absolutely necessary. And our local sheriff did issue a travel advisory. And it's been really hard on everybody. It really has. But I think for the most part, we're doing pretty well.
Oh, that's good to hear because I'm in the state of Florida where they were much behind New York State in issuing what is basically lockdown provisions and what all. And some of the counties have already started opening back up public spaces and people are crowding into them. And they're going to pay a price down the road because they have not followed the social distancing rules that are in place for our protection and for their protection. So, hopefully they'll get the message and get back to staying at home, just like everybody in your community is supposed to be doing and everybody in this house is doing. So Governor Cuomo has challenged us to reimagine the workplace and how services are provided. And the coronavirus pandemic has given us a great real world laboratory to be doing that in. Certainly for all the people who work from home, the companies now know that's a viable way of getting the job done. Have you been thinking about how Canton might reimagine your workplace going from this point on when things get back to whatever the new normal is?
Well, Donna, to be honest with you, no. We are just taking day by day right now, certainly learning quite a bit. And, we'll be thinking about that when things settle down. But it has been a whirlwind for the past 4 weeks, and you know, we structured our departments workspaces to where they were comfortable, right? Um, and everybody's getting the job done. We're
That's the important.
still, that's the important part. Has it been an adjustment for everybody? Absolutely. But to think about how we're going to do this in the future, we're not there yet. We're still, you know, we're examining our finances. That is a huge issue, not only for the town of Canton, but for all the municipalities. We're going to take a big hit on that. So it's critical that we look at everything and see how we move forward. Because as with any municipal government, state government, right,
Mm-hmm.
that revenue is not guaranteed. Those are guesstimates. Now, if the money comes in, wonderful. But you know, they're not guaranteed, and we have 20 different revenue sources for the town of Canton. And
So we'll get into that a little bit more
okay.
because that is definitely going to affect how the rest of this year goes, and who knows how much longer into the future, because these bills have to be paid sooner or later.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think a state declaring bankruptcy is actually a viable option,
And
regardless of what Mitch McConnell thinks. In addition to the soft services that the offices provide, the town also has services that can't be managed from the office. How has the stay-at-home order affected the critical work that Department of Public Works and other departments do? You can't plow the roads from home, and I know the North Country's still been getting some snow.
well, certainly our highway department is our largest department. And we've been working very closely with the union, CSEA, on adjustment of schedules, and at the same time protecting our employees. So we do have um, an adjusted schedule. Uh, and you know, employees are on call for a certain amount of hours at home, and then they come in for a certain amount of hours, right? Code enforcement, he is able to work from home and be out in the community. And a recent ruling just came down now about construction workers and how they operate. So, and then our code enforcement officers comes into the building after hours, right, to keep that social distancing. And so he's utilizing his office, you know, at night, but working from home. So that's working. You know, town clerk's office, they've been wonderful. We've been staffed right along. You know, we have a drop box in the building. People can email, they can call, they can set up appointments, but you know, our town clerk's office is still working. Our assessor's office. We have a part-time assessor, but she has been working from home and now back in the office because the assessment rolls were due. The extension came very late. So all the rolls were submitted to the county, and now it's a matter of setting up when the assessor sits with the rolls and then grievance day. How are we going to do that? When it was in person, you know, coming in the office or, you know, meeting with the bar. Now we need to assess that. And the county is working closely with our assessor, and it'll probably be over the internet on a Zoom or by phone conference. We're still working out those kinks. Historian is working from home. That's working great. The court, they're mandated by the state on what they need to do. The state just shut down the court system, or the court department. So, but the court clerk has been coming in and doing work as necessary.
Well, that sounds like you found some good ways to adjust with people's work schedules and trying to make sure that you know, everybody is safe, which is the main goal during this time, certainly in terms of the public health crisis. So the towns all received their local taxes in January, which certainly makes that one part of your funding secure. But as you just mentioned, you get funding from a lot of other sources. So do you have any idea what the impact is going to be on the rest of the revenue that you usually count on when you planned your budget at the end of last year?
Mm-hmm. Well, our town board, we're very concerned because the CHIPS money for highway, Pave New York, and the extreme weather money That's not guaranteed. We don't know if we'll get that. We don't even know if we'll get a percentage of that. That's close to $250,000. That's one thing. The AIM state revenue funding, we get $95,000. We don't know if we're going to get that, get a percentage of that. The sales tax revenue is the big one. That's going to be severely impacted because of businesses shutting down, people not shopping, that type of thing. Last year we brought in $863,000. That the majority of those, the CHIPS money and the sales tax revenue support our highway department. So, when municipalities do their budgets, it doesn't mean the money's in the bank, right? It's
very true.
Unless you have a very good fund balance, which you're not supposed to anyways, by law. But so the money comes in throughout the year, and then you just, satisfy your budget items, right? So our highway budget is not satisfied at this point. And it's going to be very interesting, but not only did we put on a spending freeze when we put on that state of emergency, we just put on a hiring freeze as well.
Right. And we know that in the North Country, there's a limited amount of time to actually do the road and bridge repair that is absolutely critical to that infrastructure. And if you miss a year of doing that work, it's really going to create a cascading series of events down the road, so to speak.
Absolutely, and it's a domino effect, right? So right now, our board, we're having conversations about what is critical that we need to pay for, what can we not do, and it's all about the finances. And as far as paving this summer, we're having serious conversations that it's probably not going to happen, as with any municipality. And then the unfortunate part is you need to look at that spending, and that is supported by the CHIPS money, right? So you spend it, you do the work, and then you put in for CHIPS reimbursement. But if you don't do the work, right, you can't put in for the reimbursement. So it's kind of it's a juggling act, and we're looking at everything. But in my view, is we probably won't be doing any paving this summer, and that puts us even farther behind. We have 100 miles of road. We're lucky if we can pave 4 to 5 miles a year.
Right, and
it's
that is true.
expensive.
That's true of every North Country community. They're all in the same boat when it comes to trying to maintain the road structures. And our environment and our climate is very hard on the roads. I guess the only good thing you can say is that now that people aren't going anywhere, they aren't putting stress on the roads, but that doesn't fix them for sure.
Right. It's a quandary that we're in.
Yeah, well, you're not alone, and hopefully some creative solutions will present themselves that will actually allow you to get some of that absolutely critical work done. So the town, I read just the other day, is opening up the boat launches and the golf course. What will be the rules for using those facilities in the light of the New York Pause requirements for social distance? How are you going to manage those spaces safely for folks?
Well, the golf course is actually a village program. So
Okay.
it's up to, the mayor and the village board and, the golf pro on how to do that. And, they were just talking about it at their last village board meeting. And hopefully something will happen there. But that's a village run program. As far as the boat launches, so we have 2 boat launches in our town. In Pirates, we have a beautiful boat launch, and then at the Little River right outside the village next to St. Lawrence campus. And again, it was an executive order to close boat launches.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the law. So I, under the state of emergency, followed the law in closing the boat launches. And people were concerned, but again, it's about the health and safety and well-being of everybody, right? So, and we know those are very active sites. So then, a week and a half later, 2 weeks later, on a Saturday at 5 p.m., boat launches were taken off the list of the Empire State Development list. I never saw an executive order, but it was taken off. So um, I chose to think about it for a couple days, and then we opened them back up. We opened them back up because it is taken off the Empire State List. Um, the not only the physical health of everybody is important, but the emotional and psychological health of everybody is important too. And so I'm just asking citizens, if you do choose to utilize those boat launches, to again use your social distancing as much as possible. Please do not be in large groups, because according to the county uh, public health board director, right? Or excuse me, president, Dr. Williams, or chairperson, maybe that's his title. We haven't seen the peak yet.
Yeah,
And
and
so,
so that is definitely something that is still yet to come, and it's going to be important to maintain all of the public health rules and recommendations in order to soften that peak and keep it as low as possible. You know, Marianne, one of the things that town governments always do in the summer is a lot of hiring of young people to be lifeguards and to fill a lot of maybe some DPW spots and stuff like that. So all of that is also on hold at this time and is frozen, correct?
well, at this point, again, we're examining our finances, the town. Our beach is, again, recreation is under the village, but we fund quite a bit of money to that program. So right now we're looking at that. We don't know if the beach is going to be open this summer. It's all about the money. And, if it's a choice between recreation and highway, the choice is going to be highway.
Sure.
And it's unfortunate, but we can't.
You can't print money. And
Exactly.
if you could, there'd be a lot of people, unfortunately, lined up at your door, probably violating social distance rules.
Yeah. Yes. And right now we fund about 132,000 towards recreation, and that's not it's a nice service. It's not an essential service during this. And highway is an essential services. Code enforcement is essential. The assessor is really essential. Those all of our departments are essential. The town clerks, everybody. So what we're gonna we've been examining it for the last 3 weeks, and we have another meeting tonight to talk about some things, and it's heart-wrenching.
Right.
We certainly don't want to do layoffs or furloughs. We do have 4 part-time hourly positions that we've said don't come in, because of the funding. But the biggest cost for municipal governments is staffing. And,
It's pretty
the
true
benefit.
of everything. It's true of schools. It's true of a lot of things. That it's the people costs that are the thing that really make the biggest chunk out of the budget. So yes, and those are hard decisions to make because those are people that you know and that you work with and that have done a great job for the community in the past. And it's very hard to tell them not to come in, isn't it?
It is. It is. And, well, 2 are in the court system. So, they were shut down anyways. We have a historian assistant um, who she loves helping Linda, our historian. So she's continuing to do some work, but we just can't pay her. And then my secretary is out by choice. And, everybody has to do what is in their own best interests. And I support that 100%.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's the only way to
just
really do it, isn't it?
Yes, and we got to make sure that we still need to govern. Things still need to get done. So I'm pretty proud of what the town has done as a whole. And we appreciate both villages. Village of Rensselaer Falls, they're doing some great things down there, and they're taking care of their community. The Village of Canton, we all work together um, to make sure everybody's taken care of. And it's
Well,
hard.
that's the North Country way, isn't it? That we
It
pull
is.
together in times of difficulty and we look out for each other, and if someone needs help, there's a neighbor ready to give that help in a safe and responsible way.
Mhm.
So, Marianne, Canton has been a leader in climate change and resiliency for several years now. That spirit of public cooperation and your active committee system have really given the community a sense of togetherness. And do you think that has helped folks in Canton understand the need for the public health restrictions and improved Canton's compliance?
Well, like you said, it's a strong system already. It's on pause. Some committees are continuing the work, some aren't because of the pause. Um, we have our planning boards and our zoning boards that need to continue. Um, it'll bounce back.
Oh, yes.
I know committees are still working over the Zoom. It's just we've had to, just take a break for a bit.
And
Um,
your Canton Town board meetings have been able to continue over Zoom, and so you've been able to have people pay attention to that where they can't come to the physical meeting, but they can at least come to your online meeting. How have how has that been working, and how do you handle the need for public comment?
Well, we have a shared information technology and communications committee between the town and village, and strong committee. And the way it's been set up is for the town meetings, there's two village trustees that are the moderators, so that everybody can participate in the meeting and not have to worry about the technology piece, right? And same vice versa. When the village has their meetings, two of our town council members are the moderators facilitating the technology. So it's worked out great. It's a strong structure. Um, it's been an interesting structure, right? Um, it has allowed for um, public comment. At our last board meeting, we had maybe 5 extra people, aside from the departments, um, that participated. And, they're more than welcome to ask questions. Everything's recorded. And we're upgrading our system so that the transcripts will be available as well.
Oh,
So
that's terrific.
that allows for the clerk not to have to, there can be a printed version, but also they could keep their own notes as well for the record, because they're the record managers. So it allows for people to come in and join and be part of public comment. There is a structure there where we got to make sure who's coming in, and they be identified. And then, because it's for the safety of everybody in the Zoom meeting as well.
Sure,
So,
and the thing that builds, which is so incredibly important in a time like this, is public trust in government, and being forthright and bending over backwards to find ways to include people in processes like these kinds of meetings is really improving everybody's understanding of the crisis, and yet their confidence that the leaders that they chose are doing a good job and are maintaining the health and welfare of the citizens is still their primary priority. And so I think this is great for building confidence in local government when you're able to use these kinds of tools and techniques during a crisis like this.
and what I'm wondering is, when this does settle down, if it settles down, if we ever get back to, meeting together, having open buildings, is that perhaps maybe we could continue this service so that it does allow people that can't get out, that want to be part, that want to listen, can do it through Zoom. So I really trust that some good things are going to come out of this crisis. Um, there's going to be changes that are for the better, not only for towns and villages, but for citizen participation as well.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And I have seen many of your own social media posts asking for cooperation on social distancing from the residents of Canton. How do you think the Canton community is holding up during these difficult times? Are people managing to stay positive?
I think overall, yes, but then there's also a lot of struggling. And, we're here to listen, support. There's a lot of good support systems in our community now, and people are pulling together. It's an emotional roller coaster, right? Um, and it's based on fear, fear of the unknown, fear of your safety, your health and your well-being. And if you have a good support system, um, that's important.
Yes, yes, it is, and that's one of the things that local government can do. Um, do you have a sense from the business community about how they're managing to weather the closures and the slowdowns? Some of them, of course, are still open because they're essential businesses, but do you get a sense from the economic development side of town government how things are going?
I think people again are afraid. um, we recently had a business close on Main Street, Buster's. um, I think businesses are struggling. I think people, the way they consume and shop has changed. Um, there's a lot of different financial structures that small businesses can apply for. But again, the one program ran out of money within, I don't know how many days, right? So um, there's there's a lot out there that if businesses wanted to, they can contact Lee Rodriguez, our economic developer, to help facilitate that. There's the Small Business Administration up at SUNY Canton. So there are, again, a lot of support systems, but there's a lot of work to those too, right? So I I think our businesses have adjusted, but the true impact is going to come.
Yeah, I think you're
Is-
right there too.
Yeah.
And no matter how much is happening in Washington, it's always very slow to filter down to the small community level. And we certainly know with that first bunch of money, a lot of it did not make it to small business. It actually went to some pretty big businesses that were very well connected and could move quickly to apply, whereas that is not always the forte of small business, is it?
hmm And local governments, we're on the front line, and we need just as much as support as the airline industry.
That's for sure. Marianne, let's also take a minute to talk about the importance of folks in your town and the North Country in general to fill out their census forms. In the 2010 census, every person counted on the census equaled about $10,000 that came back to the county as our share of federal money. That's really critical now, isn't it? Because a lot of the money that's being apportioned is based on those 2010 census records, and we need to update those in 2020. So talk a little bit about that and the impact in your community.
It is very important for everybody to fill out the census, and there's so many different ways you can do it, right? You could do it by phone, you can do it online, you can have someone come to your home, and or you could do a paper copy, right? It is critically important that everybody participate, because not only is it federal funding, but um, for state and local governments, but it's also for schools.
Right.
That money, that's huge. So you know um, it'll be interesting to see what the results are, but people need to do the census.
They do, in fact, and they need to remember that when they fill out the census, make sure you put every member of your household, including very young children. A lot of people think that they don't have to count their kids because they aren't out in the workforce and they aren't, or they might be too young for school. And in fact, that census is good for 10 years. And for most of that 10 years, those kids are going to be in school, and we need to be able to count them so that we make sure our schools are fully funded. And I know local schools are really worried about funding right now because the state government has already talked about cutbacks from money that was originally put in the budget. It's simply not going to be there because of how this crisis has impacted the state budgets. So these things are really important for folks to remember and to take care of right now.
Very important. Very important.
And of course, New York State is a donor state in terms of tax money that goes to the federal government. So we need to make sure that fair share comes back to us, and the census is the best way to make that happen. So, again, filling out that census form is something that everybody can do that will actually benefit their local community. And they should do it immediately so that the census takers don't have to try to figure out who to come and see down the road when the census enumerators actually are allowed to get back out on the road and do their work.
Absolutely.
So Marianne, as we close down this production, what are your final thoughts? What's the message you want to get to the people in your community?
I just want to say thank you for everybody for supporting one another as we navigate this storm. Everybody needs to stay safe, take care of yourself and your family and your fellow citizens. And I know it's hard. We're all afraid, but we're strong. We're strong as one. And that's the beauty of the North Country. And so I would just appreciate your asking me to participate in this again. As always, Donna, and appreciate what you're doing to get the word out and advocate and share information about what local government is doing.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's always, I think that's just part of sort of our civic collaborations that we do here at North Country Matters. And even though I'm at my remote location in Florida, I still read about North Country news every day, and I think about my friends and my family who are up there. And we are all in this together, no matter where we are physically located. And staying safe is our job, and supporting the folks who are doing good work is also our job. And being one of those people who does good work, because one of the ways that we can overcome our fear and our uncertainty is to go help somebody else. That really is the best way to take charge of the things that are going on that we have no control over. Focus on the things that we can do, and that's helping each other.
And, if I could, I'd like to give a shout out to our state representatives and our federal representatives too. And, our fellow elected officials at the county level. We're all doing the best we can, the best we know how. But at the end of the day, just as long as we, treat each other with dignity and respect, even though we may differ in opinions, we're all fighting for the same thing, and that's for the citizens of the North Country.
Thank you, Marianne, for coming on the show today, and good luck with continuing to manage things there in the town of Canton. I know you have a strong town council and a great group of town workers, and the right people are in the right place to do the right thing. So thanks for that.
And our two villages as well.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, we're a big town.
We are a big town. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Much like Potsdam with two villages, and so yeah, there's a lot of local government. There's a lot of cooperation that goes on to make things work in our North Country communities. That's for certain.
And our two colleges, and all of our businesses and nonprofits, and our fire departments, and we've got a lot going on.
Yeah, that's for sure. It does take a village or a town or a county, doesn't it?
And the wonderful, frontline essential workers, the healthcare workers. Wow. That's all I can say is wow.
I know. I have family members who are in that cadre of people, and they are doing yeoman's work. And our job is to stay out of the hospital system and to stay safe so that we don't endanger them. So that's why following the public health rules are so important. Well, Marianne, thanks for coming on, and I'll let you get back to your busy day. I'm
Okay.
sure if somebody wants something,
I put my phone in the kitchen.
oh, well, you may have to go find it then. Thanks a lot, Marianne, for
All
coming
right.
on.
Thank you, and you take care.
Thank you. I will. You too, my friend. These
Okay.
conversations are a production of North Country Matters. This show is a civic collaboration between the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters and the Potsdam Public Library. Please stay safe by following all of the public health recommendations. And until next time, please remember, our North Country matters.